All right, y'all. So yesterday, or not yesterday, a few days ago now, we had what I like to call Diet January 6th or Dollar Store January 6th. You had a whole bunch of Bolsonaro supporters storm the Brazilian Congress and basically try to spark an uprising and do a coup. And it was hilarious for a number of reasons. I mean, probably the most interesting reason is that at least with January 6th in the U.S., there was some theory to it. So this was the day that Congress was going to, put the final stamp of approval on the election and have Joe Biden be president. And so that was going on. And so all these Trump supporters who stormed the Capitol, they were hoping, hey, Mike Pence will say the magic words, and with this one weird trick, we can overturn the election. And when that didn't work, they thought, well, if we storm the Capitol, we can, disrupt the proceedings, and then maybe, the military or something, or Trump will get involved and declare martial law, and then we'll be able to, hold this off and eventually get Trump in there. So there was, even though it was a pie-in-the-sky, crazy idea, they didn't do the organization that was necessary to actually pull off a successful coup. There was still something on paper that you look at and go, maybe 5% chance, right? Whatever it might be. But with Brazil, they stormed it on a Sunday. Nobody was even in that shit. It wasn't even a janitor in the building. Excuse me. They were just running around, breaking shit. Somebody was defecating on a desk. I like how I use the word defecating, like I'm a real serious person. Like, he had a bowel movement on the desk. Okay, so it's these are a bunch of goofballs. Now, they were bussed in. And so the question is, well, who funded the buses, right? Where was the organization coming from? Was it Bolsonaro himself? He was hiding in Florida, going, to KFC every day. By the way, hilarious. He was hospitalized soon after he got to Orlando because he had severe intestinal distress. Now, people make the joke about KFC or whatever, but look, the fact of the matter is he was stabbed in his gut a while ago, and so actually all the issues he's had with his gut is related to the stab wound. So, but there's some reporting that, hey, there was some top Brazilian official who met with Bolsonaro in Florida. They may have done some planning for this before it happened. You have a bunch of U.S. politicians calling for Bolsonaro to be extradited now. I agree with that sentiment. I think he should face charges. If not for this, you need more evidence to know if he was directly involved with this. But if not for this, then for the corruption that he very clearly is guilty of. And I mean, he's openly said, I'm in favor of fascism. I'm in favor of a dictatorship. There's a guy who's massively anti-gay, destroyed the Amazon rainforest. The list goes on and on. Just terrible leader, terrible. He has a massive cult of personality behind him like Trump, but he's an establishment cuck. But Tucker Carlson, of course, comes trotting to the rescue, right? He has on this weirdo. And look, I love this. Look at the argument that's made with a straight face on the #1 so-called news program. Check this out.
Now, it turns out, as the plot usually does thicken in these situations, that there were many an agent provocateur yesterday at these buildings and doing incredible gross damage, breaking windows and such. And it looks like this is turning into a Reichstag fire and being used to clamp down on these democratic protests. The protests are no more. The camps have been disbanded by executive and judicial mandate and fiat. And now they've set up a concentration camp where 1,200 Brazilian citizens are locked in the gymnasium and grounds of the Federal Police Training Center in Brasilia.
It's the Reichstag fire, y'all. So in other words, when Hitler and the Nazis did basically like a false flag thing and then took power, that's what's happening here. So in other words, it was Lula and it was the leftists. They're the ones who did this. And they're doing it to clamp down and take more power. That's what this is. Okay. The wanton disregard for evidence on this program is astonishing. It's literally any narrative that fits their preconceived biases, they're going to run with it. There's not a single shred of evidence, never mind proof, for the claim that they're making here. This is exactly like, remember the stages of denial with the January 6th protesters in the U.S.? Oh, man, today's the day the patriots are rising up. This is wonderful. This is great. Oh, shit. Oh, no. Actually, this was Antifa. What? So the second thing started going sideways, bro, it's Antifa. It's a Reichstag fire. It's Black Lives Matter doing all that stuff, bro. It wasn't us. We're good by definition. They're bad by definition. Come on, man, grow up. Look, this isn't difficult, guys. This really is not difficult. You ready? Here, I'll show you how to do it. Remember the 2020 George Floyd protests and riots? I, Kyle Kulinski, stated and known leftist, am taking the position if somebody's at a 2020 protest and they decide to burn down a Mr. Taco that's owned by some innocent Mexican working class family, don't do that. That's bad. I oppose that. That's it. That's all I have to do. So people who are nominally on my side, right, protesting for police reform or whatever, if don't do bad things in the name of the good thing, because the bad thing is still bad. So burning down, some Walgreens that, some normal person who makes 85 grand a year is responsible for it. They didn't kill George Floyd. They didn't do the bad thing. So if somebody's on my side and they do something bad, I can say, hey man, that's bad. Don't do that, please. Why can't they do the same thing on the other side? Why are they so fundamentally incapable of saying like, hey, don't try really idiotic coup attempts, bro. Don't defecate inside the Brazilian Congress on video. Don't break the windows. Don't shatter the pipes and flood the place. Now look, maybe I'm a softie. Maybe I'm a quote unquote moderate or whatever. But yeah, I agree. If there were people who were at this protest who didn't do anything violent, right? If they were just people who were outside of the Congress, they didn't break into the Congress, they were just standing there with their goofy flag or their sign or whatever. Yeah, let them go. If they're locked up, okay, but they didn't really do anything wrong, right? They were with a group of people who others did wrong, but if they didn't do anything wrong, they didn't break a crime. We don't do, guilt by association, because that's stupid. Because then everybody's guilty of somebody else's crimes, and that's a slippery slope of all time. So yeah, free the ones who were just peacefully protesting, fine. But yeah, the ones who broke the laws, go after them. Go after them. By the same token, the ones who broke laws and created victims who were part of a protest that I would nominally agree with, yeah, go after them. This isn't hard. But these guys are incapable of doing it. You want to know why? Because they're narrative humpers. That's what they are. They have a narrative, and it's always square peg, round hole. Lula bad. Left is bad. This Reichstag fire. This false flag. And by the way, he also went on in this rant to say the Brazilian election was rigged. The Brazilian election was rigged. Lula won the first round, and then Lula won the second round. And Lula, mind you, was a phenomenally successful prior president in Brazil. He lifted 20 million people out of poverty. He grew the middle class from 50% of Brazilian society to 73% of Brazilian society. He did a family allowance program contingent on sending your kids to school. It was wildly successful. He did, built infrastructure. This guy he left office with a 90% approval rating. And you think? No, actually, the guy who was despised, who had a much lower approval rating, who did a terrible job handling COVID and everything else, Bolsonaro, he actually won. Based on what? Based on what? Based on the fact that you, Tucker, and you freak weirdo boy who's doing the interview, you guys just like Bolsonaro. You let your own preferences bias your commentary to the point where there are no more objective facts. This is all subjective drivel. And it drives me crazy because, again, this is the #1 so-called news show. And this is the stuff he's spoon-feeding his audience. So if it's a protest and I don't like it, they're rioters, send in the military, break it up. If they're actual rioters and I like them and they do bad things, actually, no, that was the opposition. It was the Reichstag fire. It was a false flag. Lula was already president. And then, you know what? He eventually left office. The idea this guy's going to consolidate power and this guy's going to throw aside democracy, ridiculous. Ridiculous. This is a guy who was wrongly convicted on bogus corruption charges that now we know they're bogus because it was proven, and he still went to jail even though he knew he was innocent, and then he got out. By the way, much to the credit of Glenn Greenwald, who did the detailed reporting where they found out they railroaded this guy. They railroaded. There was no corruption. So anyway, no evidence, no standards. Just, keep pumping that narrative, bro. Oh, yeah, my narrative. I got my narrative right here, bro, yeah. Nobody should watch this guy. Clown of all clowns. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.